So we have here. And Benjamin, I'd just like you to introduce yourself to everyone and say hello. And of course, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. I'm really excited, and it's such a pleasure. And hello, everyone. My name is Benjamin. I'm currently based in Mallorca. I'm also a little bit of a globetrotter for the moment, been for the last year. And I practice and teach a specific lineage of yoga called Kundalini yoga. I don't know if any of you have heard of this or maybe practiced it before. I'm quite curious actually to know if someone already has an experience of this. No? Okay, great. And then I'm also self-employed. I have my own creative agency. I work within the field of fashion and lifestyle. I consult and create visual content for brands, and have over the last couple of years merged my kind of I don't know merged, but it developed a very interesting and I think personal way of working and living in a very balanced and energizing way that we will talk more about today.
Yes, I love that. I love the energizing elements of our conversations. And so, Benjamin, I ran into you actually at a very soulful Indian restaurant that is no longer in the city, unfortunately. It was so sad when we found out it shut down. But we ran into each other there, and I had seen you around town before, and then we ended up having a really beautiful conversation that day. And that's when we also started to talk about the simplified retail model, and inviting you into this space. And then a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about, what we wanted to share today with the community, I was left very inspired and reflective about our initial chat on how we wish to experience. How we talked about energetic angles and the Kundalini lineage, and how the new age tools that we have to navigate our modern day life, which we'll touch on throughout today. So I think one thing that you mentioned that stood out to me is that you said, with more energy, we have more choice. So, with science backing quantum tech, that can you tell us about our energy landscape and the frequencies that we operate within collectively and individually? I think you'll be able to articulate that a lot better than I just did.
Sure. So let's start with this notion that everything is energy. I feel like that's a good point to start from. So from a yogic perspective, in yogic science and technology, then there's this basic understanding that everything is energy in this universe. And yes, as you say, we have the quantum technology and science backing this up now, and many other different people. So where to start? Yeah, so everything is energy, meaning every thought has a frequency, a vibration. Food, a chair, a picture on your wall, everything, a smell, etc. So everything has an energy, and we basically have low energies and low frequencies and high frequencies. That's for me, at least, through first of all having an experience of what it means that I will talk more about. Then it has kind of become the way I see the world now, and not only from a cognitive place, but really how I also experience things now is through this understanding, through an experience. So I encountered this practice, Kundalini yoga and meditation, so it's both, in 2017, beginning of that year. And I was in a place of very, let's say, like anxiety. I had panic attacks, in a level of despair, and it had been going on for several years. I've been working in the fashion industry, like high fashion, and I'm from Copenhagen, but I had lived in Paris at that point for a couple of years, and lived a very high-paced life, was very busy. And at some point, I was told by a doctor to take 3 months off because I was stressed, and that's it. I didn't have any tools, anyone to kind of really support me or guide me. but I don't know, the universe wanted me to encounter this thing. I think it was 6 months after, while I was staying in Paris, and my friend who had started practicing Kundalini yoga, who is my dear and best friend right now, she brought me to a class, and for some reason I had no notion, like no idea, I had never had an idea of me being a person who practiced anything like yoga or had a spiritual practice or meditation. So I went to this class with also some resistance and some judgment and negative expectations. And literally within the first 20 seconds of this first exercise, I had what most people call a psychedelic experience. Later on, I had the understanding that what I experienced was a Kundalini rising. And it was sort of like a homecoming experience of extreme peace. And I had so much releasing, like I was crying, laughing, getting angry. And I had a feeling that everybody was probably watching me, but nobody noticed this doing this yoga class. It's just like normal Kundalini yoga kind of thing, an experience that people have. And I was sort of blissed out for 3 days after, and without knowing any like much about this technology or this practice, I started a daily practice, which it is indicated to be. And that really fast started to change things in my life, and not from a point of wanting to change. I just felt better. So this healing that it gave me was actually my entryway, I think, which it is for most people. And things just started to change for the better. So that was my kind of beginning. And already a year after, I was so hooked on this practice that I decided to do a training, back then called teachers training. Now it's just called Kundalini training. So everybody can do this and have the experience of this deep transformational training over several weeks. And yeah, things started to change. So that's the, I think that's the notion behind this, like that it's all about energy. We'll talk more about it, but yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And it's just so nice to also hear that, so many of us are experiencing anxiety and this fast paced life and so much happening at once. So it's also refreshing to see that you can actually come out of that. And sometimes, most people say take 6 months off, take 3 months off, but that's not always a reality, right? It's not something that you can definitely just do, especially if you like the areas that you're expending your time in. And so I'm curious to ask you, and I also mentioned that to you earlier about resistance, because we spoke a little bit about it as well. But when we experience resistance, what does that actually mean, and what does that stem from, and how can we overcome the resistance? Because it seems like we're being guided in different directions, but we're resistant, and that can create stress or anxiety. But I think you understand that landscape a lot more proficiently.
Sure. So maybe to continue my story, actually, then it makes sense, because when I started practicing this, so this is a practice that is meant to be a daily practice, or it's indicated to be. You can practice as you want, in groups, classes, of course, too, but it is a personal daily practice. So I started doing this yoga set and meditation every day, and certainly things started to change, like physical things. Like I had a knee problem from being a professional dancer. Nobody could fix it. It disappeared after 10 days,
Mm.
and no doctor could explain why. So this problem was just gone. Later on, like a great example, like I stopped drinking alcohol, but it wasn't a cognitive like a decision. It was just a pattern rooted in my subconscious that was, like, oh, I'm going to do this for several reasons. Later on also, I stopped eating meat, and it was not, again, like from any political or like, it was serious, because something was not, I was not, this whatever, again, pattern was not craving it anymore. So these patterns and that resistance or blocks we can have in the yogic science, it's complex, but simply explained, we have the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and the unconscious mind. But the subconscious is I think in this time and age a very important thing to have an understanding about, because we basically come into this world, and already within our mother's womb, the subconscious starts to get programmed. And that's basically like absorbing all the information in the environment we grow up in until the age of 7. There's a great guy who has a great way of explaining this called Bruce Lipton. He's not a yogi, but he's worth giving a read or listen to some of his lectures. So until the age of 7, we are basically like recording everything in our environment. So first of all, our mother, our father, our close environment, and then like society, etc. And simply because we have to understand how to survive and relate to the world we come into. And that subconscious programming then most of the time, unfortunately, also has some negative traits. Actually, they have done some research and it might sound a bit doomy, but actually for some reason they know that 75% of our subconscious is negative programming.
Oh, interesting.
That's quite something to pay attention to. So whatever, like the environment we grew up as children it's quite negative. It's not very supportive. And that it basically, so it's our subconscious. So we are not conscious of these patterns and this programming in our subconscious, meaning again, how was our parents, how were they not only like treating us, but how were they, what patterns did they grow up with and pass along to us. So that's kind of like the first, the childhood trauma, the childhood anger, and all these things that we have to deal with. Then the next layer is society and our culture, and the third one is the collective consciousness, subconscious, and I would also call it hypnosis. So we have these 3 layers. We kind of need to, in some way, purify or penetrate to kind of relate more to our conscious mind. So our conscious mind is where we connect to our soul, from like, or let's use another word, who we are. And what prevents us from that is if we have this negative programming in our subconscious. I hope this makes sense. Otherwise, please ask questions. It's very specific, a bit scientific, but so what happens when we actually, not only practice Kundalini yoga, but any type of meditation, then we start to raise our frequency. So what we know is that any negative, like a trauma, a neurosis, etc., that's a negative vibration. So it's low. So any negativity is a low frequency. The opposite is any kind of love frequency, because that's high. So when we do yoga, when we meditate, basically we higher our frequency. So these negative patterns, basically they cannot exist in this environment. It's kind of like breathing underwater. It's not possible. So we actually just drop them. We just drop these patterns because we have more energy in our system. So this is a very different approach than like psychoanalysis or anything like that, where you talk about your problems, which can be very difficult, because actually when you talk about your problems, you also amplify them because you give it more energy. So not meaning you cannot talk about it, but you need to do something that raises your vibration. On a daily level is optimal to get rid of these negative structures. And they are literally thought patterns in our subconscious. So it's just thought patterns, and we don't need to know exactly what they are. Actually, it doesn't matter. The only thing is about having a higher frequency in your electromagnetic field in your body, because we are electric beings. The yogis knew this already 1,000 years ago, but now we have the Western science basically saying the same. It's really interesting. So that is the, let's say, when coming back to your word resistance, usually when we have resistance, it's from the subconscious. Rooted in fear or in some version of I'm not good enough. That's basically what we all kind of have, is a version of this, like I'm not good enough. And it comes out in different ways. It can be self-sabotaging, it can be anger, it can be inflated ego, it can be so many different things, any disorders and so on. But there's this kind of like, I'm not good enough. And that is just a thought pattern. It's nothing more, nothing less. It's a thought pattern. And yes, it can be deeply rooted, but through in increasing and elevating our energies, we can drop these patterns. Not saying it's easy and it happens in one day, The yogis, again, it's recommended to practice daily, because another thing is our subconscious get information daily. In the yogic science, it says with the blink of one eye, we get 1,000 thoughts, and we only process one of them. So the other 999 thoughts, they go into the subconscious, and the subconscious is a big landscape. It's something like millions of kilometers in size each direction. So it's a big kind of trash can. I mean, basically like on your computer with all these unprocessed things, and it's fine. That's why we have it. Otherwise, we will get overwhelmed. We will not be able to do anything. But we need to take out the trash once in a while. That's meditation. That's taking out the trash. And we don't need to relate to the trash. We don't need to have a relation. We just need to take it out.
I'm very curious to ask you later in today's call about meditation practices and the different ways that that looks like. But yeah, it's just so interesting how much is happening in the unseen realm that is impacting us in different ways without us even noticing, and how it's actually impacting and guiding our behaviors in a lot of ways. But Benjamin, something that you said also when we first met that really resonated and actually stayed with me is that you said that when something is true, it energizes you, and when it's depleting, it's an illusion. So, can you tell us a little bit more about this? And can we at times be creating depleting illusions through thought patterns and limiting beliefs while actually experiencing something that can actually be true and energizing to us? Like, for example, you mentioned self sabotage. Can you tell us a little bit about this notion that you mentioned?
Sure, it's a very, I mean, this, again, that's actually exactly that phrase I kind of usually get back to when I'm not sure about something or experience like, yeah, on clarity, because the thing about that is that we have a hard time to kind of understand when we, or we can call it trusting our intuition or something, because we have been told to navigate from certain dogmas and something called the rational mind and all these things. From a yogic perspective, intuition is basically using all the faculties. So your intelligence, your logic, and your gut feeling, and all these things, and that together like creates this like intuitive understanding of something. So it's not an impulse, but so when we experience that something is like, let's say you want to do something, but you eat something and afterwards you don't feel good. Obviously, there's something about what you ate that wasn't working. A great example is, for example, that when you meet someone, a friend or some people, or you have a job interview or a new client you're working with or something, then after that meeting, to sit down and be like, okay, how do I feel? Am I energized or am I depleted? Or am I maybe neutral? Because then you will understand kind of, okay, was this something, did this tap into some of my subconscious, whatever, traumas, neurosis, or is this actually something that is I consciously want to engage in? It's really helpful in like with people, because you'll instantly know, you'll instantly feel that after spending time with someone, am I energized or not? Yeah. That doesn't mean that we need to like cut off certain things. It's just a way to navigate, to be more aware, about, okay, I know this is going to cost me a bit. So this is also a good thing, and which my teacher, I think it's a great example, and also a good practice, that you basically have a balance sheet every day, and you have a certain amount of energy. And that energy you want to use every day on the daily, you want to get down to zero, and then you go to bed and you're fulfilled. You don't want to be in minus. Most people probably live in one, like we have normalized being in minus constantly, which is, stress, anxiety, and whatever, constantly depleted, in depletion, which is not the human experience. That's not normal. That's not why we are here. So you have this balance sheet, so that can, we can consciously choose even to do things that we know is maybe not gonna, energize us, but deplete us a bit, or some, but we want to, we like the grind, or this is gonna give me something else and I need it. But as long as it's a conscious choice. So I feel like to have this kind of reflection or pause is a really good thing. It's something that also happens a bit automatically when you start to have any kind of meditative practice, because your system starts to way faster, give you the red lights. You see the red lights like miles before you cross it. So it's not, it's not necessarily like a cognitive, like, oh, every time you meet someone or you eat something or you hear some music, like then you check in with yourself. No, you will just start to have a more kind of self-regulating system that will give you the information way faster, because you release all these things that are blocking the way for that intuition to actually give you information.
Is it ideal to think that we can actually have days where, well, a lifestyle where we're mostly energizing with nothing that depletes us? Is that the end goal of that, or is this really to keep the balance of our well-being?
I think on this planet, so in again, and that's also a yogic thing, that in this universe and on this planet, we know we have polarities. We have the opposites. We have negative and positive. You know, we have the North Pole, the South Pole. We have magnetic pulse, and that's the game here. So with everything, anything, there is a positive and negative charge in any relationship, with any again, food as an example, or a job, or any thought, or any action, or any product. There will always be, you know, or experience, most importantly, there's always a positive and negative side. So I think it's more about conscious, like knowing how can I optimize in like my energetic, like how can I have enough energy in my system to do the things I want, because we will in this realm experience these things where we need to use the energy also. So in that sense, I think, you know, it makes sense that you kind of want to reach zero every day, basically, so you know you have spent all your energy, because that's the game here. We have the positive and the negative constantly in everything.
It's such a power tool to take into consideration, because the more you become aware of this energy that is energizing you versus depleting you, the more you could see those red lights that you mentioned as well and start to change the game for yourself to go into the more energizing space. And I think so many people will believe that I can't change that. I can't go into this direction. But if you start to see those flags enough and you want to actually make that change, like for example, canceling your whole meetings for the afternoon, life will still go on, the company will still function, but you need to take the moves for yourself to become more energized in that space. So maybe that's like a good tool as well to use in the modern life as well, in a sense.
Yes, and actually the thing is, so with this technology, you know, specifically with Kundalini yoga, and this is a common thing. I'm not biased. I do not have any experience of other techniques and technologies, but it is what it is. It's the fastest tool we actually have available on the planet right now. Meaning that I think that there's this comparison actually. If you have a daily practice of 2 hours of hatha yoga,
Wow.
um, for 20 years, you can reach the same gain within 90 days of a daily practice of Kundalini. That's how fast it works, because the Kundalini energy is something, I think it has a bit of a bad rep, actually, a bad rep, but it's very powerful. Basically, it's our chi, it's our vitality, and it can only kind of, we need to stimulate it to activate it. It needs to be stimulated, and for that to happen, probably very specifically, we need to have our chakras open, our energetic bodies. In the yogic science, we have 10 bodies. I know it sounds a bit overwhelming. We have the physical is one of them, and then we have 9 others. And all of these, and the system is a self-regulating system. So with every exercise we do on meditation, all these things opens up and balances, so the Kundalini energy can flow. And that's what I mean. People also have spontaneous Kundalini risings without even doing yoga, but it happens for different causes, and it can look very different. But in a class and in a setting where you like activate it, it happens safely. Like you cannot activate it without being ready for it within this practice. So we have all this energy available, and I kind of lost where I was going with this actually.
It's so good. We're just having an open chat about it, in a sense of using the energy depleting and energizing to navigate our ways to get closer to more of an energizing lifestyle.
Exactly. So what I wanted to say, yes, is that it's the quickest tool technology we have to get more energy into the system, and also again release stuff from the subconscious. Like some of these meditations and practice like takes literally 3 minutes, and you can have that experience. What I experienced when I was working full-time in an office was I could certainly apply these small 3-minute exercises. I mean, sometimes even at my desk, other times it would be going to the bathroom or outside nature or something, and I could use these many different exercises, breath techniques, or meditations as I wanted during the day, so I could keep my energy up. Because, so we also can kind of participate more, because it's just about getting that energy up again. It's not really, sometimes, yes, it can also be, to retreat from something, or, go for a walk, or just do something else. But most of us have a full-time job, or, we have things to do. And that's also what this practice was meant for. It was meant for householders.
Yeah.
So normal people, not cave yogis sitting in a cave or an ashram and meditating. So this is actually the most unique thing with this. It's actually the only lineage that is made for householders, for people having a family, having a job, having sex, participating in society. So the technology is very easy to apply into a normal daily life. And just a little bit of background history. It came to the West in the 60s by the only teacher who has taught it publicly, called Yogi Bhajan. He came to the States, to LA, and actually started teaching Hatha Yoga, because he was a Hatha Yoga master from India. But it was during like 69 and the whole youth revolution and the women's slip, and people really wanted to, it was all about revolution, but he saw a lot of young people, having good intentions, but they could not really manifest a different energy, a different consciousness, a different frequency, especially, when they start rolling out drugs and so on, because that did the opposite. So he decided that Kundalini was, I mean, it was needed, because he needed to give people something that worked instantly. And his mission was to teach teachers, so other people could go and teach this technology in the future. And this is something he said already back then. It was, this technique is actually not for you, it's for the coming generations. They will need it. They will need the access to these technologies. So it's made for this technological age, and it is also a technique. So it kind of goes together. Like it's quite funny language wise that both is we need techniques to live in a world of technology,
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah, amazing. And just so everybody knows, at the end of today's session, Benjamin is going to be teaching us some of these meditations, and we're going to have one collectively together just to get a sneak peek into that. And so you talked a little bit about the subconscious mind and its evolution, and how it all comes together in our young years, and the practice and the ownership that we can take to rise above our thought patterns. Is there anything that you can elaborate on that, and how to? There's so many thought patterns that really block us in our everyday, and when we're trying to live a life that's more energized and just more at peace and more blissful, you could say. What would you say? What can you add to that?
Well, so I would say that the tricky thing with the subconscious is, again, that we are not conscious about the subconscious. We cannot see it. So it's really tricky to kind of consciously dive into it. It's like, mirroring a mirror with a mirror. It's really just not possible. So we need a technology, a technique that can just release what's not serving us,
Mm.
because we cannot go down there. I mean, we could, but we know that I mean, it would take a lifetime maybe to sort out a few things. And basically, all these patterns has a root pattern, and it's about kind of like shedding layers constantly. So I would say when you have a meditative practice daily, you suddenly you start to become aware of these things, and you can consciously be like, whoa, this is actually not something that I want. It's not making me happy anymore. Maybe it was before and now it's not. And you can easily detach and let go of it. And sometimes the thing also just drops by itself in a minute, like through a practice over time. Like you just don't have this reaction anymore. So that's a different thing. So these patterns, they kind of transmute, or they don't have any energetic charge anymore when you suddenly have a higher frequency. So you can, sometimes they can pop up, but it's like a skeleton. So you kind of, oh, something happens and normally react, with fear or respond with fear to this thing. Like two people can experience the same thing, and one will be like afraid, and the other person will not notice anything. So that's a good example of the subconscious mind, that we experience things differently. So you usually have this like fear response to something, and you suddenly are like, oh, that I should be fearful right now, but because the pattern is, it doesn't have a charge anymore, you can basically just look at it and be like, oh, actually I feel fine about it. So what it actually does, it empowers you, because you suddenly have the choice to, do you want to relate to this in this way or that way? So it's also the relationship, the way we relate to our past, that suddenly, because you drop these things, of course you still remember that you used to have, and feel this way and so on, but you don't need to relate to it anymore because it doesn't serve you.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's probably for me the most self-empowering thing on this planet right now, is to let release these patterns that are not serving you, whatever they are, because we cannot some patterns can serve one person and not another person. So the whole thing about creating theories and boxes and concepts and like rules and principles around these things, it's just impossible, because then we need 9 billion different principles, because it's unique from each person, how to, what serves you, what doesn't.
Yeah. And exactly what you talk about, sometimes you have an automated way of reacting to certain situations, and then at some point you find yourself that this situation is arising, but you don't relate to it like you did anymore. But it's almost like a part of you is forcing you to go back and relate to it exactly as you did before, because it's a habit. So how do you then, as Benjamin, create that wall when you experience such an experience?
Well, that's a funny thing. Actually, sometimes I do a glory round. Like when you win something, you take a last lap and you're like, okay, it's done. You just go for it. And most of the time I don't even pay attention. It's just, it comes up, but I don't have the response. So I don't feel that fear or anxiety or insecurity. I'm just like, and if I do, then I can use my technique. Then I can sit down, I could do something, sometimes just for 3 minutes, and I overcome that insecurity I have with this, skeleton of a pattern. But that's usually, so we can constantly apply the technology whenever something comes up. And it's not being like passive or denying it. No, you actually facing it every time, because you sit down and it's there while you do one of these, exercises or meditations, and then you face it directly. So that's really the most direct way, and kind of like, I don't know, my teacher used to call it like eating death for breakfast kind of attitude. And we can make that the order of the day. That's just normal, that we just, okay, I have something coming up here, okay, let me face it and just like roar at it, because again, so coming back to what you also said, about things depleting, when something is a non-reality, it takes away energy, and when it is a reality, it gives you energy. And that's rooted in this, because if it is truly depleting you, then it's always rooted in some fear or some insecurity or some negative pattern. So we cannot use it for anything. So therefore, drop it and do what energizes you.
So can
And
you,
to yeah.
no, go for it. I'm curious to hear what you wanted to add.
No, of course, to navigate that landscape on like a very sophisticated level, there needs to be some kind of practice behind it. So you kind of practice it every day. Otherwise we can get caught up in like I know this amazing guy, maybe you've heard of him, Chugam Chungpa, who also came to the West from Tibet in the 70s. He wrote an amazing book. I've only read parts of it, but called Spiritual Materialism. But that we can actually buy into oh, this doesn't serve me, or so this depletes me, because you actually have a resistance to it. So we need to have enough subconscious kind of daily taking out the garbage, so we know we are not relating to the wrong thing. So that's the tricky thing. But when we have that, it's way easier to know, okay, this truly depletes me and this actually energizes me, so I'm going to go this way.
Super interesting. It actually calls back to a slow mastermind that we had with two Kundalini masters as well, Set Sarbat and Set Mukh. And they were very much talking about the importance of sitting with yourself in the morning to take out the trash, to empty it, start from zero, because otherwise you're just carrying all these heavy bags on your shoulders throughout your day. They're influencing you, they're navigating you. And then coming off of what you just mentioned, can one say then that a lot of the depleting experiences that we are experiencing are actually illusions that we're creating and kind of reality, like you're saying, they're false realities? Is that something that we are creating through our subconscious mind or through our narrative, or why are we doing that?
Well, so again, definitely this subconscious, of course, in relations to the conscious mind, because we can have some idea planted deep in our subconscious that that gives our conscious an idea about, oh, I want to do this. I mean, we know many examples. Whatever you grew up in a certain environment that had certain values, and you don't feel good enough, so you start chasing things
Yeah.
to make you feel good enough to fit into a certain idea, like, and again, this is on many levels. We have the mommy daddy issue level, and then we have the culture, the environment, and then we have the collective conscious and subconscious. But something like the nuclear family, that's a concept, that's a structure, and that's something that is prevalent in our global, I mean, especially Western world. And that is one of the things that I think many people now is kind of breaking out of, that idea, that notion that should bring you, satisfaction and completion, to kind of fence yourself in with one person and a child, and then you are like fulfilled,
Yeah.
then you just need to buy certain things and then everything is fine. So most of us, we grew up in an environment where that was our programming, that, oh, this is fulfillment, this is happiness through everything, from the books we read, our own parents, other, and we started to compare these like families against each other, like, oh, they are more happy, they are not, so what are they doing wrong, they are doing that, so we started to chase certain things, and also to reach certain successes or checkpoints at certain ages. I'm 30, I need to have done that and reach this, otherwise that, which is just a thought pattern, a cultural pattern around the nuclear family, otherwise we do not get that. And that pattern is layered in all the layers, the mother father society and the collective. So it's very, we are also faced with it every day, even now, when you walk down, you see it, it's there, it's prevalent. Not saying it's not right for someone to do it, but it has been a very kind of standardized idea for most people, especially us growing up and so on.
Mm. Yeah, it's so interesting how much external factors are guiding the way that we think and the way that we behave and the way we set goals and the way that we want to go for things and the way that we identify ourselves with. Even though in today's fast world, there's a lot demanding on us and we deplete ourselves for it. And I think that you and I talked about a question where we talk about how complex today's world is, and it's fast and it's saturated and it can feel pretty overwhelming. And I know that a lot of my clients through mentorship will also talk about how there's a lot they want to do, they feel excited about it, but it's a lot, or there's just too much to manage, or there's too much demand, or they have to do A, B, C, D to get to E, F, G. So how would you, I know that you mentioned that meditation is a daily practice that can help to offer you space in that, but is that enough, or is there more of a lifestyle change or direction that we need to consider in order to really be more versus doing more?
Well, so my experience is that what is the foundation, what has been the the, the center of me being able to figure out what works for me is
Yeah.
from my practice. So and that is both, it's yoga, it's like physical and meditation at the same time. I will explain it later, like exactly what that means, but because again, to create something that works for you, we need to find out what works for me.
Yeah.
So we need to get rid of things that are not me, not you, so you can be you, be more you. And that is a constant thing. It's going to evolve constantly, but definitely what I have experienced, and other people around me that has done the same, like that is it goes quite fast, especially with Kundalini yoga. So suddenly you're like, wait, I don't want a full-time job, or I want, my own business, or actually, I just want to move to the country, whatever the deal is. I want to have two different careers, and I want to, be together with this person and live here. And, there's so many things. This is like a unique thing. So I don't really have a lifestyle advice, but I definitely know that these techniques and principles can be applied to everyone. Like when you apply them, you will basically become you. You will become more you. I think that's the whole game on this planet, is to we are here in a quite short time, in this incarnation, and to as quick as possible, figure out your trajectory and who you are, and then start to expand that. Because I mean, again, as you say, this world has never been this complex, and it's only going to be more complex, more weird, hotter in temperature. Like it's it will demand more from us. So the kind of, not remedy, but only, I mean, way I see we can have a good experience is that we need to really figure out what works the best for us individually. And we need creativity, we need genius, and that comes from that place. That comes when we truly relate to the ideas and the impulse and then the intuition that we have, and we have enough energy to go for it. And therefore we cannot have this like pattern of like, oh no, I'm not good enough, and I have issues, and I'm sad, I'm anxious, and da 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 da. I mean, of course, I'm not saying people are not, we need to deal with that. Of course, that's the whole thing. But from that point, it's about expansion. So definitely, yes, for me, my daily practice is what gives me the right, enough energy, enough clarity to do what I want to do and have to do, and gives me a good experience, and funny enough, also other people a better experience.
Yeah, of course, right? Because yeah, your energy becomes contagious in their space, and how they experience you also changes them. And it's a lot better than giving advice. It's better just to be what you want to be and be true to yourself, and that becomes better than any advice you can give anyone, because you emanate that and they see it live actually.
Completely. And again, that goes back to the whole thing that everything is energy. So a person, anyone who feels good, makes other people feel good. And it's not about what you do, who you are. It's just that you feel good. It's a frequency, it's a vibration. And we have all met these, we know people that, when we're around them, we just feel better.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest gift we can give to each other. That is to feel good, and whatever that means to you. Because I mean, again, this is what I relate to, one of my teachers, that we are post-moral. So we need to figure out what experience do I want, what energizes me, and then just expand it, go for it. And nothing should hold you back.
I love that. I love that phrase when you say figure out your trajectory and just expand that. Like that's that's all of that in a nutshell, right? It's just literally why put your focus in areas that are not serving you, but rather shift so you can really, like you said, discover who you are. I think you're selling this daily practice really well. I'm really curious to give that a try and see what happens. But that sounds extremely enlightening and elevating. But what about you, Benjamin? What system and tools, what do you practice in your own life to keep you balanced, grounded, and energized? So you have your daily practice, but how do you flow through your days? What else is part of your own personal ecosystem that has, keeping you, allowing you to maintain what you've discovered, but also continuously evolving in that space?
Such a good question. um, so I definitely have, different other tools or things that inspires me, and also help you navigate. And again, it probably leads to, again, to understand the world in more layers, in more dimensions. We can also say, you probably heard, many of us, this, that we kind of coming out of the 3D into the 5D and so on. And I can relate to that experience in many ways. It's not in a kind of like woo or spiritual. It's just it's like literal, that these other dimensions, they are more energetic, they are frequency based. So you don't really have access to them without you have enough, like you are there. Then you can certainly see those things. And one thing, like astrology is one of these things. We can certainly relate to ourselves and the collective with way more information. And also, for me as well, it was, especially in the beginning, a tool. So actually I was suddenly like, oh, I don't need to freak out now. It's just because stuff is happening. and I need to go through this, and I have my practice. So, okay, this is a tough week, or today there's this whatever you don't need to know about even, but a certain, cosmic configuration, which has impact on the planet, because these celestial bodies are energy as well. And again, if you are interested in those things, like go research, and you will see that not only from these, like, every spiritual lineage on the planet, but also now the science, like, we know that these planets and those elements out there, they have an impact on the earth, like we, with the moon and the tides and so on, because they basically have a certain frequency, and they have a different sound, so frequent sound and frequency is the same thing. So again, astrology is one thing I have dived into, because that really gives me a lot of insight and kind of hacks what's going on. You get, it's like watching the forecast, the weather forecast. They can never tell you what experience you're going to have, but
Yeah.
they can at least indicate, like, this is the environment right now, so be prepared, use your umbrella or sunscreen, whatever it is. That's what really astrology is. And then a huge thing for me, most of us, especially for me, I think it's for most people, is also like food.
Mm.
So to get a better understanding on like how to eat, what kind of food to eat, and so on, really is a hack into like changing your energetic frequency, because that's a lot. And most people today, most of us, we have a, like a bad digestive system, not a good metabolism, because we're stressed in one way or another. So food is really important, and how to figure, like, to be able to digest better. And actually that's a really key thing for me. So a part of yogic science is obviously also Ayurveda. So that's something I also study, and I still, I mean, go deeper into. And everyone can do that. It's just Googling things, just Google it, and you will start to, find your people and research. So anyone here who has access to internet, which everyone has, can go and figure this out for themselves. Obviously, if you have a teacher, great. I would highly recommend that. But, just to get some information on a personal level, we have access. And Ayurveda has really helped me a lot, because that helped me getting out of some patterns that I was also buying into. First of all, being a professional sports person, but also being a more slim guy, and always being taught, like, oh, you need to eat more because you're skinny and so on. Like it kind of disrupted or gave me some false beliefs around food. And also later on, the whole, like, kind of health wave of, like, oh, you need to eat raw salad constantly to be healthy, which is like a big no for me and for most people, because we cannot digest that. So Ayurveda is a great thing to get a relationship to, in my opinion. Astrology, Ayurveda. And there are other different systems too. Maybe you've heard about human design.
Mm.
Don't know if you know about human design. That's great. And it's also something you can study on your own and have readings with people, of course. Highly recommend that. And that gives you, what human design really does is, how do you function energetically in an optimal way? So it's a bit of a life hack. And again, it's a choice. So it gives you information about, like, what kind of environment energizes you, how to eat, not what to eat, but how, what kind of setting should you be in when you eat.
Wow.
It really penetrates a lot of myths. For me, except for personally, I need a lot of stimulation when I eat. Like, I need to watch something, talk to someone, and I can even walk on the street and eat. I mean, I've always been told that was so bad for you and your digestion, but actually for me and for other people that has this specific, energetic setup, it works well. So suddenly I could, like, do that and not feel guilty about it. So
Yeah.
even, like, removing that guilt and shame, energizes you, and then you enjoy. I mean, then I enjoy walking and eating sometimes. It's not all the time. And other people need the exact opposite. They need to sit in peace, and they maybe need to just eat one thing at a time. That's just one part of human design. Um, I'm sure that's a technology that was downloaded from the future. I mean, it's very advanced and very complex. It's based on your birth date information, which, like, astrology is another, and numerology and so on. So those are other tools I use to navigate. And then I mean, which has been, it's still a thing for me, but to understand that, to do what energizes me.
Yeah.
So um, that's a tough one. I think actually for
Love that one.
it's a tough one because I get caught up in ideas around, oh, I should and I should not, and if I want this to be successful, I need to do this, da 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 da. And of course, we need to do things. We need to work. We need to sometimes hustle our way and so on. But also, to have a life where I don't. I mean, let's say what we call work for 8 hours every day. I would like to have that more defined, because basically for me it's more like people buy our time for 8 hours, but I have never been in a situation where I worked 8 hours a day. And being a professional, like an elite sport person, I was taught to maximum practice for 3 hours every day. And with that, I became, first of all, a Danish champion, but also an international champion and winner. Like, I had success with that. And actually, I forgot that for 10 years after stop doing that. And literally today, I probably spend, my kind of focus work is probably between 2-3 hours. Sometimes it can be less, sometimes more, depends on certain projects and so on. But that's like, and I would not even say so, because then, I do other things. I have meetings. I watch something. I listen to a podcast. I go for a walk. I work on a pitch for something. I do yoga. Whatever that, we are really sophisticated, and I really my I think one of my wants with this life is also to give people more that opportunity to be like, no, we are here, definitely. Of course we need to work, and as long as we have this money system, yeah, sure, but there are so many things that are not working with that system, in terms of like, how do you value yourself? Because most people we're just taught to be like, oh, this is your education, this is the full-time job, your part-time job, so you're supposed to be paid this per hour, but that's just the system. For me, it's more about what am I worth? And maybe it's not per hour, but to deliver this that you asked me to deliver. That's something that really has helped me. But also as a self-employed, I'm not saying everybody has this privilege, but it's something I would love, that this system could be more sophisticated and agile about. Because we are not here to to do the same thing every day for 8 hours and then get married, complain and die. We have way more to do on this planet, especially right now in this time, because we know the house is on fire. So we need to unleash our genius and our creativity in unprecedented ways.
Yeah.
I don't see any other options, honestly. It's not because I'm like, oh, I'm just, and this means not that everybody's like out doing activism or being big artists that create. I'm just saying, in whatever field we're in, wherever we are, in just in our relationships, to be more ourselves,
Yes, I love that.
because that will move the ball forward, which is way more sophisticated than what we have ever experienced or been taught that we are. We are way more. We have still this. I think many people also have this fear around like AI, for example. But that's nonsense. It was created by an organic intelligence. Obviously, it's never gonna be that. It is. Even the word artificial organic. So we have so much. We can create the most advanced things with our minds. So that's what we need, because we need to find solutions to a lot of problems right now.
Yeah, we have a lot of elements in our lifestyle that make us feel very comfortable. And actually, when we're too comfortable, it actually pushes us away from experiencing life to its fullest, creating more awareness, going for things in a different way. And so I guess I have two more questions for you, Benjamin. I think then I'd love to open the floor for any questions that the community has. And then of course we can do the meditation together. But my second last question is that on your journey so far, obviously you have accomplished a big feat, which is to overcome your original state that was pretty depleting. You were anxious, you were feeling stressed out. And that's kind of a common experience that many people around the world are experiencing right now. And then you went into this practice where you have been committed every day. And I think you told me it was every day for the last 5 years that you have been committed to a daily practice. And that takes a lot of determination and dedication and loyalty to that. So, what would you say in the last 5 years in taking that shift has been your biggest discovery about life for you?
Oi, the biggest discovery. Definitely to that, you know, that there I would say probably infinite amount of layers to this experience. And I was only in one layer. Like I was watching one channel on the TV, and there were like way more channels to watch something from, meaning like changing my perspective. Again, we can call consciousness as perspective, and it's just, climbing higher up the mountain so you can have a better view on what's going on the landscape. And it's hard to explain people, if someone is like in the valley and someone, of course we can talk about it, but the most important thing is that you elevate so you can have the experience.
Yes.
And for that to happen, for me, definitely it has been and is through my daily practice. Because what it actually is, I mean, it's not because it is the reason why it's called a spiritual practice, just because it works. I mean, it's a you practice your spirit, you take it seriously, and you want that to be, you want to have a relationship to that, and not only ideas of like, oh, um, I work in a shop, so that's my identity. And so no, your identity is infinite. It's vast. It's and you cannot, you can see it in other ways, but you need a relationship to it. And those techniques are just ways of getting a relationship to your soul, who you are. And so, funny enough, my experience has been, and it was something I spoke to a friend of mine like last year, was like, my daily practice is basically just, it is a relationship to the exercises and the meditation I do, but it's ultimately just a relationship to myself. So I have committed myself to be like, okay, every day I sit down and do this, no matter what's going on in my emotional landscape, what's going on in the world and the media and so on, because I want to navigate from me and not from any other people's ideas of the world. I want to navigate from this, because that's the only way I can participate anyway. That's the only way I can bring something to the table instead of repeating someone else's. We can actually call this a trance. I like that concept, because meditate, like, we basically want to come into our own trance. There's nothing wrong with being in a trance, but you should be in yours, not in someone else's.
Of course. Yeah.
Right? And that's what you basically enhance every day by sitting down and putting yourself in a trance, and in a high frequency positive trance. Then you start to crystallize that habit. So that's, I mean, that's my experience. So I cannot really promote any other.
But I love that. I love when you talk about that, that you want to navigate from me, because ultimately, you can be looking for advice and read an article, but that article can have nothing to do with your reality, your situation, your stance. And I think it's so important to sometimes put away the Google and just tap in and say, okay, what do I want to do in this situation? Forget the expectations, forget the social norms, the conditioning that if this, then that. And that navigating from me statement is quite beautiful. I'm going to meditate on that a little bit more.
Definitely. And what it does, it means exactly. So when you read something on Google, or when you read something on the news, you it you figure out what resonates with you. So basically, when the more let's say, the more you are, you will also be able to be like, oh, this resonates with me, this doesn't resonate with me, because it's not something like, oh, this I should believe that, or I should take. No, it's like, no, I don't buy into this, and I do buy into that. So we can be more sophisticated, and we can also start, I mean, and this is also something, getting back to that thing about what I do daily. Like, I purposely and consciously, even like on social media, follow people that has the exact opposite perspective and opinion that I have. First of all, so the algorithm doesn't weaponize my own belief against myself, which it wants to do, but also to get more information. Because if I cannot see it from the opposite perspective, I lack data.
Yeah.
And the more data and information I have around something, the more intelligence I have. And this is also something they are trying to, through this division constantly, so people only view things from one side, because then we can enhance and, amplify this. And it's usually hate and love, constantly. So because it's very profitable. So if I can view something from 360 degrees and like all dimensions, and get more information, then I have more information. And then by the end of the day, I'll be like, okay, you know what? So what I think and feel, and what resonates with me about this, let's say, problem or whatever read in the news, it's your experience. you know, and you trusted to, and then you can bring that to the table. So you didn't only like read what was, you know,
Yeah.
your own little narrow perspective on things. So that's highly recommendable too.
You put it through the filter of yourself in a sense.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. And I have one final question for you, and that would be, what advice would you have for our participants today on the art of being? And then, of course, we will open up the floor for all the questions. But what would be your advice for everyone here today?
Mm. I was about, I don't know, I read this morning, like drop your problem, but that's not an advice.
That's a good one as
It
well.
doesn't, again, after this talk, maybe for you guys, it makes more sense when I say drop your problem, because again, that is something rooted in your subconscious. But obviously we need to be able, like, how do you drop your problem? You need more energy. You need a higher circuit. You need you know, a different circumvent force, which we have. Everything has an electromagnetic field on this. Any organic thing has that. That's the planet. Every animal, every person, every vegetable, a piece of meat has that, a magnetic field. So we want to enhance that speed of that, so we can drop those negative things. And then and this is also something that works for me, but you know, like get into your weirdness, because that's really what we need. Everything where you're like, no, this is, that's too weird, this is off, I cannot propose that idea, and I cannot do this and that. Like, discover that, you know, like really, you know, where we have, when every time we feel that resistance, as we spoke about, or that fear of something, like, then dive into that, face it, look at it, like, you know, right here, turn around and just face it immediately, instead of spending years and months and like whatever, go through difficult relationships before you look at it. Like, be like, no, my hair is on fire, I'm gonna look at it now, like today, now, this moment, this minute.
Yeah, at the root, pull it out.
If that makes sense. But yeah.
Makes total sense. Thank you so much, Benjamin. So much good gems to draw from that. I would love to open the floor now for anyone that has questions. As usual, we're very patient, so just open your mic when you have something to ask Benjamin.
Yes.
Hi, Benjamin.
Hey, hello.
Hi, that was really nice. Like, I just feel really inspired by listening to you, and it's interesting because for the past 2 weeks, I've been really learning a lot about the magnetic field from Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you
Yes,
know
Joe.
who. Yeah, and so everything you've said has been like really relevant and really nice to hear, and actually made me want to start doing Kundalini again. I never ever got into a big practice with Kundalini, but I did do it in my yoga practice. Um, my question to you is, because you've been doing this for 5 years, what happens when you don't feel like doing it? Or I don't know, does that even happen when you're like, I want to take a break from this? Like, do you feel like if you do take a break, or when you've done something in the past, have you gone steps back? Do you feel like you need to work harder to get back to where you were? Because I always feel like when I don't know, maybe something's going on in my life and I'm really busy and I miss my daily practice of my morning routine for a week because I'm hectic at work. I feel like I've almost lost it. Like, I do need to work harder to get back where I was. I don't know if you've had any experience or if you have any
Good
advice
question.
on that.
No, it's a really good question, because I know for sure I've had that. I mean, I have that experience on the daily. You know, it's not like, it's like, I mean, honestly, a chore most of the time to go, you know, get up and do my practice in the morning, and that's just how it is. But then I do enjoy it, and also, again, just a note on that. Like, I think we have this maybe wrong idea, most of us, that it needs to be, you know, oh, you need to be in love with things, it needs to excite you. Like, we have this thing, a tendency to kind of act on our emotional landscape all the time, and that's just not a stable place to work. So we need to be more intelligent, be like, I know this is going to bring me good and it's going to make me feel good, therefore I do it. And the good news is that with this technique, like, when you start to practice, let's say you practice for a certain amount of time, I mean, what you gain from that, that's yours forever. So whatever you will have a certain frequency, you know, and you have, you know, release certain things, whatever, but you have crystallized something in your system. And that's in the yogic terms, we have this ninth body, which is the subtle body. It's there, it's going to stay in your subtle body. But on the other hand, of course, I do with, if the times I didn't have time to do all the things I do. And that's actually the thing. The good thing with this is you can even just check in, do 3 minutes. You can always do 3 minutes of something. And then you're like, okay, today it was that, but tomorrow, I can do my full, whatever, half an hour, 2 hours, whatever is your thing. So, and then you kind of keep the Kundalini, the chi going on the daily. And for sure, if I didn't, didn't go deep for a couple of days, like didn't do what I had to do, I would feel like, oh, now I'm easier impacted, or maybe a bit easier overwhelmed and stuff, because these other bodies needs like to constantly be boosted. But you do kind of keep crystallizing your bodies and your field. So don't like stress around that, and then just commit. Find one thing to commit to. Maybe it's a 3 minutes thing, and then you can have, like, let's say, a practice around that. In this, we have many different sets and meditations, but you can be like, okay, this meditation or this exercise I will do no matter what happens, and then the rest I also want to do, but in case, then I know this is at least, because it's actually about the continuity. That's what crystallizes. It's about you having a deep experience on the daily with one thing. That's all it takes.
Amazing, thank you. And do you have any recommendations of people you go to online, or have you done it all in person?
Sure. So my teachers are from so my teacher, she created Rama Institute in LA, and they have an institute there and in New York, and here where I am in Mallorca in Spain. And they have Rama TV, an online platform, and I don't know any other better teachers. And and the thing is, you have to go out and find a teacher that you resonates with. So maybe you need to try a few, whatever, but I would recommend Rama. I do also teach myself Saturdays online because I travel. So now I'm here, so I have a residency. I teach a class every week, but then I'm going somewhere else, and so on. And then there's an amazing woman, and also my dear friend Namsacha. I can send her her contact in the chat, and she does a lot of work with women, especially. So actually, Kundalini yoga, 80% of this technology and this science is for women. So I do not know any other kind of thing that is so for. Back in the 70s, Yogi Bhajans were like, he had these like women camp and like and it was all about, because in this, from the yogic perspective, the woman is the first teacher, and she's basically, a woman can change a whole generation because she holds life. And therefore the yogis also knew that there was if we want peace in this world, we need to make sure that women are thriving and happy and treated well, and so on. And this has been a yogic thing for thousands of years. So therefore, and it's also, it's the highest incarnation you can have on this planet is as a woman. You're basically 16 times more than a man. So we have the same faculties, but it's just 16 times more because you need to, because you carry life. It doesn't mean that it's not good to be a man or less good or something. It's just, it's a different setup in many different ways, not only biologically, but on other energetic levels. So that's why there's such a big focus on, and so many women's teachings and so on. So I would recommend Namsacha as one of these teachers who is really mastering that. I will send the link in the chat.
Thank you so much. Amazing. I had no idea you're in Spain. I'm in Spain too, in Andalusia.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's a shame. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Opie. And Benjamin, of course, after today's call, if you will email me as well, any of these resources, I will put them into our chat that we share as well. That way everybody can have access to the same resources.
Let's do that.
Any other questions?
It can be anything. Just go for it.
Yeah, I have a question. Well, I had another one and it was just replied. But yeah, my other question is, you were sharing how you said it's not possible to have this Kundalini rising unless you're not ready. Can you share a little bit more about that? Because like practiced Kundalini a few times in the past, and I really love the practice. And I'm doing like a body psychotherapy right now. All of these. He I work with was not against it. He said like, you can do it, it's fine. But because there's so much in movement right now in your body, it could go straight to your head, and like from his perspective, it could like there could be like part of the integration that is missed on the way. So he was like, yeah, you can, it's good to do Kundalini and like maybe go at it gently right now. Yeah, what's your perspective on that and how to best like approach it?
Definitely, that's good. I will elaborate on what I meant with that if I said it's not possible. So what in this system, when like you practice Kundalini as taught by Yogi Bhajan, then what happens is that it opens up the chakras, like it opens up the body to be ready for this. And you can see like this, that the Kundalini energy, you want it to go straight up and not like diagonal or something. And again, if the chakras are not open and all these like energetic bodies, the nervous system is not able to hold energy, like it can be stuck, and it can, it can be a less good experience. Never have I heard of anyone who had like a wrong Kundalini rising doing Kundalini yoga. I've heard of people having a spontaneous Kundalini rising outside of Kundalini yoga, because Kundalini is an energy, it's in all of us, and that could look different, like a psychosis or whatever. And also just people who are super blissed out kind of. And I've met people like that. So it's just more to say that, yes, first of all, you need to do what resonates with you. And when you even do the practice, again, it takes time. So it is a practice. So it doesn't mean that when you do an exercise that you can do it for, let's say, 3 minutes, but you do it and you suddenly feel like, whoa, this is maybe overwhelming, or oh, I don't feel like I want to push through right now. And then you need to do that with you. So that's for sure. And that's also why the teacher never comes and corrects you or tells you to continue. Like, I mean, of course, continue, but you need to kind of feel into that. I had many of these experiences in the beginning where I was like, whoa, I feel dizzy, and and it triggered obviously some fears in me that was in the subconscious realm. So I would have a bit of resistance, but over time, from daily practice, like, you start to be able to hold this, and especially the nervous system too, because having around 12,000 volt of energy in your system, that's not what a normal like human being has. So you need this nervous, but the thing is, it's silvery. So over time, when you in the nervous system to hold more and more, it goes together. But in that experience, it's your experience, so you have to readapt to that. And yes, if you take into consideration what your doctor says or therapist, and then you go at it in your pace. So it's a you to you business for sure. I just wanted to say that there's no danger in practicing yoga when it's taught correct, obviously, as it is within the system.
And is there like do you have any advice on how to go at it like in a gentle way? Is it like just any Kundalini practice, or is there a certain like set or series of exercise that's best to start with? Or is it more about the length and intensity at which we go into those kriyas?
I would say it's no matter what you do, because there are, many different things. And also, I don't know, maybe for you, something that is really challenging me could be really easy for you. That depends on whatever is going on in each of our kind of landscapes. So in just whatever exercise, whatever meditation do, like, have check in with yourself, So if you're like, oh, I'm just gonna do it less intense now, I might need a break, then do it. And then by time you might feel like, oh, now actually I want to push it a bit more, I want to challenge it. So it's like, challenge yourself, but also, have that self relay where you know, like, how much can I challenge myself.
Okay.
So what, in whatever kind of set and thing you do, because maybe it's the more like the breath work that is, something, or this or that, I don't know. So you check in with you, and of course follow advices you get from people, and then, take into consideration all of that information when you practice. And then over time, it will obviously change when you practice it more and more.
Okay, thank you.
Or you welcome.
Thank you for the question, Chloe. Do we have one more question for the evening, and then we can go into the meditation practice that you prepared for us, Benjamin? If we have a question.
I have one.
Yes, Kristen, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for all those words. I don't know if this is, I won't phrase it with anything actually, but I'm just kind of new to this whole meditation yoga world, and I absolutely love it. But it's funny when I share this experience with people around me, and they look at me kind of like, oh, like, I've gone a little crazy or something. So Benjamin, when you made that switch into this kind of new lifestyle and this higher frequency life, how did you navigate the language you used kind of when you explained it to the people around you who kind of were resistant to this new kind of atmosphere you're in and kind of looked at you like maybe you were a weirdo or something?
Good one. First of all, are you wearing blue light block glasses like me? Right? I can see the green, like
Yeah.
right now. They're so cool. It's good. I wear them all the time. No, so good one. I actually I was probably too enthusiastic, because I had these profound, deep, also very psychedelic experiences with this practice, and sharing that, like, it did overwhelm some people. I mean, I don't know if I would recommend not to do that. I mean, yeah, I was also very like, I just, what it did to me was, so again, it gave me so much in such a short time. And I had obviously at that point other people around me that was not feeling well. So I was a bit like, I was not forcing anyone or preaching, but I was so excited, and I would always lead the conversation back to like, well, you should just do this. I didn't want it to buy into other people's neurosis, because suddenly I realized that you can actually just like release those neuroses. And people were talking about chronic illnesses and chronic this and chronic that. I was like, no, give this a go. So some people did leave my life, but not in any bad way, not in any dramatic way. It was just like, they stopped calling, and suddenly, I don't know, hundreds of other people entered my life. But do not despair. And also, like, it really, what it also gave me was my relationship, especially to my family, my mom, my siblings, my dad. Like, it changed for the better. Like, there was, again, because suddenly I was out of some of these childhood patterns. So I didn't view my parents from that perspective anymore. I could view them more like from a neutral or elevated perspective in some way, as more clear and as a human to human. And I could relate to them in a more me way, which also changed their behavior, and also my, so that was actually really profound. So usually, again, people who are not up for feeling better, they would probably be less around you. But anyway, there's nothing in those relationships that gives you anything either. So I mean, that's what it is. You probably already know, if you have people around you that you're like, this is not, they are not really my jam anymore. And or it's a different relationship. Maybe you're just going to see them less, or in a different way, or have different conversations too. I'm saying that these relationships go away. And then a great thing was for me also to have a community of other people. Like, I did my training here in Mallorca, and I had suddenly a lot of people that I could talk to also about my experiences that was new to me. And they also had, they could relate to, and we had a common language for it too. So a community, I mean, and in general on this planet right now, community is really key. So find those people, like, if you go to a weekly class, you know, like, you know, then talk to these people about what you experienced. So you know, they also know what you're talking about. I think that's what I would recommend.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the question, Kristen. And so, Benjamin, would you like to now lead us into the meditation practice that you planned for us?
Yes, let's do this. I'm so excited. So again, we want to, I mean, I can talk and talk and talk, but the most important thing is that we have an experience. That's the only thing. And in this age, I mean, this is not only from Yogi Bhajan and Do Mighty, like it's from many, like it's all about having the experience. And yeah, some people call it the experience of, you know, unity and consciousness, God, the universe, the quantum field, whatever. But we can talk about it, but we cannot relate to it until we have the experience of it. So that's why I want to do this, so you can have your own experience of whatever this is, because nobody can take away your experience. So that's the most important thing. So get comfortable. If you want to sit in an easy pose, like cross-legged position, or on a chair. You can also just sit on a chair. The only thing is we need to have a straight spine. And if you can, I would recommend to be barefooted, because we want to have these tissues open under the feet to release. So any straight spine position you can be in. And we start always, no matter, even if it's a 3-minute meditation, we tune in, it's called. And again, we work with sound. So there's a lot of mantras, a lot of like words that we repeat and chant or meditate on, because they have a certain frequency. So it's not the meaning of the word, it's the vibration of the words that we're interested in. The words are from this phonetic language called Gurmukhi, which is from India, from Punjab. But this language was only used by a certain elite and not the population, because they wanted to keep the power of this vibration for certain people in power. That's one thing. But basically, we just tune in with this mantra, and it's called Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. It means that I bow to the teacher within myself. It connects you to your higher self. That's how you can view it. So when you say these words, this mantra, you will instantly feel a different feeling, vibration, and it just makes us practice from that level. Yeah, so we use that word, and we do it 3 times. And if you don't remember, you just copy the sound. So it's Om Namo Gurudev Namo. So bring your palms together here and just create a little heat between the palms. And then place them here at the center of the chest, at the sternum, and press them slightly together and also in towards the chest bone. And close your eyes. Sit with a straight spine, so chin and chest up. And here, through the nose, we are breathing through the nose. Inhale deep. And exhale. Inhale deep. Roll the shoulders up and back. Exhale. And on the next inhale, exhale, we will use the mantra Om Namo Gurudev Namo on the exhale. So inhale deep to chant. Close the eyes. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Inhale. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Last time. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Now inhale deep. Hold the breath in here and squeeze the root log, which is your 6 organs navel point. You squeeze them in and up, and you kind of feel the energy going up through the spine, and we project it out through the point between the eyebrows, the third eye. Hold, squeeze, and exhale. And relax the hands down on the knees. And just sit still here for a moment and just feel that you already can feel like, just pay attention to the sensation. You most likely will feel a different energy already, a bit more calm. So even this, just this, to repeat this mantra 3 times can be a meditation in itself, to get more stabilized and more balanced instantly. So the first thing I want to share with you is something that I find really useful, especially living here in Spain right now when it's super warm. It's called Sitali Pranayam. So it's a breath technique. And what it does, it actually cools down the body, but it also de-stresses instantly. So it's a pranayam technique, that a breath technique you can do anytime during the day. And you have your hands here, index finger and thumb touching, and they are slightly pressed together, and you place them on the knees. And then if you can, some people can't genetically, but you stretch out your tongue and you roll the tongue. Yes, and you keep the tongue out, and then you inhale through the tongue. Deep, 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 until you can't inhale anymore, and then you exhale through the nose. And you continue, inhale through the tongue. And if you can't roll the tongue, you just stick the tongue out. So in your own pace, inhale deep, long and deep. Inhale, exhale, long and deep. Eyes are closed, rolled in and up. Just continue for the last 40 seconds here. You might feel the tongue get bitter, and that's the toxins. It's releasing toxins from the body. Now inhale deep, hold, and exhale, release. Good. How many feel different already? Just raise a hand. Yeah. Good. So this was only 2 minutes we did of this, and you can do it for 3 minutes. You can actually do it more, but 3 minutes is a good amount, especially also before bed, just to kind of clear the emotional landscape and so on. And it can be done anytime during the day. Okay, so the next, it's also just 2 minutes. The next one here, it's called Breath of Fire. And if you have done other yoga lineages and techniques, just forget about it, because this is only in Kundalini yoga we have this kind of breath of fire. So it's an even inhale and exhale through the nose. That's all it is. So it's an even, so same amount in, same amount out. And the pace is very unique and individual. You kind of want to go like as fast as you can, but also as deep as you can, as powerful. So you find your rhythm. And meanwhile we do this, we have the arms stretched up 60 degrees, and I'm just going to show it here. Then we have these 4 fingers roll into the mounds of the hand here, and the thumb stretched out. And the arms are 60 degrees, and the elbows are locked in as well. And here we begin this breath of fire. So eyes are closed, and you inhale same amount of time, exhale same amount of time. Something like this. If you are pregnant or on your menstrual cycle, you just do long, deep breath. Good. Now inhale deep. Stretch the arm up over the head and let the thumb meet and the fingers stretch. And you stretch up, you pull up from the root lock, the 6 organs, navel point, and stretch. Now exhale, slowly swipe the arms down by the side. Kind of, you can imagine you're removing any negativity from your aura, your energetic circuit, all the way down to the ground. And when you touch the ground, you inhale. You push your aura, your energetic circuit down into the ground. And exhale, relax. Good. And how do we feel? Do we feel good? Great. So this was just 2 minutes, and you can do this for 3 minutes. This is specific, this breath of fire. There's breath of fire is just a technique, but this one is actually called ego eradicator. So the thumb, each finger is connected to a planet, and thumb is like Mars, it's the ego. So when we do this, we basically stretch the ego, we eradicate, we balance it, so it serves us. So this is, it works on 2 things at the same, besides of the breath of fire. So it's a good one to do, and you can also do it daily. And the last thing I want to do here is meditation. It's called the addiction meditation. So it works on the center of the brain where our habits are located. And addiction is just a negative habit that doesn't serve us. So it's different from each person what those things can be. I mean, it can be very specific. It can be smoking, for example, or a thought pattern, a trauma, something you do repeatedly, a way of thinking, and so on. And again, for some people, a habit is good, and for other people, it's an addiction. It can be, So we are working on the compulsiveness of a negative habit, yeah. And what it does over time, it basically transmute and releases this habit from your body. And I do this daily. I do this meditation daily, and I've done, again, that's been a part, 3 minutes every day of my daily practice for many years, because it's just such a profound thing. And we all have, it's one way or another, like our our compulsiveness, you know, around anything, food or relationships or something. So it's just a good thing to do. And it's only 3 minutes. So what you do here is you have the fingers again folded down in the reaching the mounds here of the palm. And then we have the thumb placed at the temples like this. And the elbows are just relaxed and slightly in front of you. And here you will bite down the back molars, like the back teeth. And as on each bite, you mentally recite this mantra, sa, ta, na, ma, satanama. So you press down sa, press down ta, press down na, press down ma. The eyes are closed and you're rolling them in and a bit up, so you focus on this point. You might feel it like you need to create some tension around this point. Yeah. So it's a forceful roll up. So here we go. You press down the back molars, the teeth, not too strong. You just need to feel something moving under the thumb. So you don't need to break any teeth. And on each press down, you recite sa, ta, na, ma. Good. Now inhale deep. And exhale, relax. Great. And this one can also, yeah, again, can be done on the daily and up to 11 minutes actually. But I will send these two exercises and this meditation to Farah so she can share them with you if you are interested. And so when we finish, we basically tune out. And just to clarify also this thing about the mantras, like when we say these mantras, we basically link up to other people who have said the same mantra for many years. So we're not saying something that has other like meanings or belongs to certain cultural or something. It's basically only been used by sages, masters, and yogis. So we link up to their like wisdom or the frequency of these words. So it's not about it's not a religious system, it's not a belief system, it's not about understanding Gurmukhi or the cultural heritage around, like, of course, if you're interested, but it's quantum technology. So it's about the frequency of these words. Yeah. So when we're done, we tune out, and we use another mantra called Sat Nam. And what it literally means is Sat is true, and Nam is name or form. So you're basically saying truth, like truth is my name, or you connect to truth, whatever that is. I connect to my own truth. Yeah. So the more you say Sat Nam, it's a most prevalent mantra we use in Kundalini Yoga, and I use it on the daily. Even sometimes when I walk, I go Sat Nam, because it crystallized this frequency of the mantra in my energetic body. So I navigate from this point. But we use it here in the end. We just do one long Sat Nam. So inhale deep, exhale, and inhale. Sat Nam. Sat Nam. So thank you so much for doing this practice with me, and thank yourself for doing it. And I hope you had an experience of something that was more constructive or positive, made you feel better, at least.
Thank you so much, Benjamin, for being with us today. It was such a pleasure to have you here and just sharing your wisdom and sharing your experience. I think that your path and your journey and what you're doing takes a lot of determination and dedication. And I can see the radiance around you. Even before we met, I see you walking down the street. I'm like, that human being looks radiant. So whatever you're doing, it's working. And thank you for coming into our space and sharing that with you. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, as well, for being here with us today, and looking forward to seeing you here next time. And hopefully, Benjamin, you will come back and see us again soon.
With great pleasure. Thank you so much. Please.
So much, everyone. Have a beautiful day and night, everyone, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.